which means welcome in Latin, the language spoken by the Romans, salvete, to the beginning of our story with an epic hero named Aeneas, who escaped from the burning city of Great Troy with his father Anchises and his son Ascanius by his side. He later found what we now know today as ancient Rome. The Iliad was composed around 800 BC and written down between 725 and 675 BC. It was written by Homer. He was known to be the greatest of ancient Greek epic poets. He was such a gifted poet that he could shape the material of a story in complicated and interesting ways. And the Iliad proved just that. You see, he wrote the Iliad to explain the consequences of a clash between two great nations. He chose not to tell other significant parts, such as how the war got started and how it ended, for the reason that he wished to only focus on the issues of death, anger, and honor raised by such a great clash, if you would say. Now, what's a nation without its people? Roman citizens were actively involved in government when needed, or willingly fought in the military when also needed. On their free time, the lower and middle class husbands went farming or stayed home watching over his kingdom, if you would say. In later times, they would eventually permanently join the military to be able to efficiently provide for their family. You see, the ideal Roman would put the state's interests well before his own. They had this concept where it was named gravitas, meant taking his public duties seriously. From that, he would earn dignitas, which has esteem, honor, and reputation. Dignity also. When middle and lower class husbands were transferred in a life of being a soldier, it was as harsh as being a citizen. Roman soldiers were hectic because they were required to be at least 18 years old. They were trained to march 20 miles a day under a burden of 80 pounds. The soldier of the Roman army also provided the labor to build walls, forts, and roads. The men were very disciplined by beating. The general would even have a soldier beheaded for not following orders. Runaways got their hands cut off, their right hands to be more specific. While traveling, the diet of a soldier consisted mostly of flatbread. The soldiers also ate oatmeal. Now, who would have thought that back in ancient history, people were eating oatmeal with vegetables also, yeah. They got a little wine here and then, but oatmeal was mostly their diet. Meat was so rare that many of the soldiers didn't even like to eat. Many of them buried their bounties or their salaries were before going into battle, and many of them never lived to dig it back up again. Now, till this day, their bounties are still being dug back up in the East Midlands of United Kingdom. And now to transition over to the sad lives lived by women in ancient Rome. For better or worse, an identity and independence were pretty hard to come by if you were a woman in Rome. In marriage, girls as young as 12 had to accept their mates chosen for them by their families, with the marriage completed some years later. And they were married off around the age of 20 to a man approximately 30 years old or older. And all women were expected to be married to have children because infant mortality was at a rate of over 75%. An average woman, rich or poor, would have to give birth to at least 12 babies to ensure that 3 would live past the age of 10. But to a cost, their continuous impregnation was a threat to their lives also. Wondering why women were portrayed to be such weaklings and inferior, even so much as a property, was because all of the writers from ancient Rome were males. So the story on how women lived their lives were only one-sided. However, women were not as weak as they were being portrayed. A great example would be a strong, independent criminal called Tullia, who was a great woman of parricide. She was the daughter of a very early king of Rome who killed her father to assume throne. Tullia then ran over her dad's dead body in her carriage, underlining the heartlessness of the murder. So, even though it's a bad thing, it was pretty encouraging to see that some women were taking a stand against men. Roman writers tell us a good Roman wife preferred to stay indoors at home. There she could devote her time to the household, symbolized by devotion to spinning wool. But then again, as we recall, they were all males that wrote about the women's lives. They described the lively details of middle and lowly class women. They worked with their husband in woolworks, food shops, and grocery businesses. Roman wives of the upper class, however, were shocking in their visibility. They appeared in public with their husbands or with an entourage of attendants, matter of fact. They went shopping, attended festivals, sacrifices, games, entertainment, even acted as hostesses and dined out. They attended women-only social events also. They also attended a key festival where everyone would gather year-long to see men battling for their freedom. What started off as a festival would eventually become a war between the Romans and this time the Greeks.